I don't wanna be the boy that runs in the back. I don't wanna be the kid that falls in the dark. All I really want to be is the guy that gets that girl.
Welcome to the AJ Steele Show. We discuss politics, sex, money, and everything in between. And now, here's your host, an immigrant, a self-made millionaire, an American, AJ Steele.
Everything I say and do, I'm just not good enough for you. I don't wanna be the boy.
Jewish people have always been the canary in the coal mine. Muhammad, the founder of Islam, first attacked and killed the Jews who would not convert to Islam. And once he destroyed them, his empire of submission, violence, and jihad took over much of the world and eventually led to the Crusades and never-ending religious wars. The Inquisition in the medieval era started out as an anti-Jewish movement that ended up growing so large that it turned against all the Protestants and all the other non-Catholics in the world, causing enormous amounts of death and mayhem all over Europe. During World War II, what started as an anti-Semitic screed by Adolf Hitler and his Nazis morphed into the biggest world war we have ever known, leading to the deaths of over 100 million mostly innocent people. In the Middle East, the rebirth of Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people led to a Muslim spasm of terror and anarchy against Jews everywhere. But naturally, that terror didn't stop with the Jews. It spread against Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, Armenians, and eventually Europeans and even Americans. I don't think any of us forgot what happened to us on 9/11. Antisemitism has no political or religious boundaries, but the recent spate of anti-Semitic attacks directed at Orthodox Jews in Europe and America has the unmistakable signature of two groups which you would think would be completely opposed to each other, and yet they found common cause in their hatred of America, hatred of Israel, hatred of Christians, and hatred of the Jewish people. The first of these two groups are the Muslim extremists who have penetrated our country and our schools and media and even government. And the second group is the extreme liberals who now seem to have taken over the Democratic Party. I don't expect too much from most Muslims. They are a people who belong to an angry, expansionist religion and a backwards, warlike tribal culture. But the Democratic Party, who supposedly promotes freedom of thought and diversity, has turned into a party that promotes only freedom and diversity for anti-Americans and anti-Semitic monsters. And sadly, many of the leaders of the Democratic Party happen to be Jewish themselves. They have been eerily silent about the rise of radical Islam and anti-Semitism in their own ranks, including from newly elected Democrats like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and a whole host of other so-called woke socialists. Today's guest, who is named Yisroel, is an Orthodox Jew from Brooklyn, a place that has become ground zero for numerous anti-Semitic attacks and harassments. Yisroel is not a rabbi nor a Jewish millionaire, but he is a decent, hard-working, everyday New Yorker who fears for his family and for his people's safety. Yisroel also happens to be a true patriot who loves America and supports President Donald Trump with all of his heart and soul. Yes, patriots come in all shapes and sizes and forms and colors and religions. And yes, many of these Orthodox Jews, they happen to be great American patriots. I think you're going to find Yisroel's take on politics, on America, on Europe, on anti-Semitism, and Donald Trump very, very interesting. I hope my listeners remember my canary in the coal mine analogy. And I want them to realize that these same Muslim-loving liberals who are now attacking Jews in New York will be coming after Christians and white people and conservatives next. Jews who have always belonged to a small minority have always been an easy target for their haters and detractors. But that hatred rarely ends with the Jews only. Sadly, history always finds a way to repeat itself. and it is entirely up to us to learn and heed its lessons. Before we go on break, I would like to thank all of our listeners for making the AJ Steele Show a Top 40 podcast, and I hope you continue to listen, subscribe, and spread the word to all of your friends. When we get back from our break, you're going to hear a fascinating interview with a man named Yisroel, an Orthodox Jew from Brooklyn, and a proud American.
All I really want to be is the guy that gets the girl.
The AJ Steele Show. Think of your loudmouth best friend, hated by all the wives, because he tells it just like it is.
Finally see your love belongs to me.
Welcome to the AJ Steele Show, Yisroel. We booked you on this show to explain why over 90% of all Orthodox Jews support President Trump. But the sad anti-Semitic attacks of the past few weeks have taken center stage for you and for your community. Tell me a bit about the situation on the ground in New York, in New Jersey, in the East Coast in general.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on your show. So basically, I live my whole life in Brooklyn, and there's always been anti-Semitic attacks here and there. That's part of our history, unfortunately. But lately, I would say in the past month or so, there's been attacks like every 2-3 days, mostly in the Brooklyn area, Crown Heights, Williamsburg, Midwood, Borough Park. So it's been like people coming over to Jewish people and just punching them or swiping their hat off their head. A lot of more religious Jews wear black hats and stuff like that. But that was bad enough, and that is bad because nothing should be done for somebody because based on the religion. But this past Saturday night really sent shockwaves through the whole community when we were in the 7th night of Hanukkah on Saturday night, and there was a synagogue in Monsey, New York, actually in a residential area, not in the spotlight at all. And this African-American person just walked into the rabbi's house as he was finishing lighting the menorah, which is part of the Hanukkah ceremony. And he walked in, and from eyewitnesses, he closed the door and he said, "No one's getting out." And basically, someone threw a coffee table at him, and he got out. He did run out, but he tried to go into the synagogue, but they locked the door in time because they heard screaming and stuff. Basically, so he had a machete. People don't know what a machete is. Machete is what they use to, when they want to walk through the jungle, find your way. They use a machete to chop the trees in the way. It's like a big sword. And he stabbed 5 people, 3 very serious, and 1 is critical, still very critical in the hospital now. And it could have been a lot worse. And someone got his license plate, thank God. The police, I assume they lost him somehow. But when he went over to George Washington Bridge to go into Manhattan, they have these license plate readers, and the reader hit the license plate. In other words, it told the police that the license plate that you're looking for just came into Manhattan. And 2 police officers were very vigilant, and they happened to have caught the car, and they were able to arrest the person. And he's in jail on 5 attempted murder, and he's also on $5 million bond.
This is unbelievable. And just recently in New Jersey, there was 2 black people who jumped out of the van and killed a bunch of Jewish people as well. Do you personally live in fear of these violent anti-Semites?
Until Saturday night, I didn't live in fear. It bothered me, as an Orthodox Jew. It bothered me. It bothered me what happened this past Sunday in Texas when someone walked into a church and just shot 2 people. But this past Saturday night really hit home, because if a person could go into a rabbi's house on Hanukkah, this with a machete, when with children there were a lot of children there, and just basically he would have just started swiping away people. That's this world. If the people remember 9/11, after 9/11, this world changed. It was never the same. airport security, all types of security. Homeland security was made because of 9/11. So I think after this incident that happened in Muncie is a game changer. And I know for a fact people are getting guns, some legally, some illegally, because it's very hard to get a gun in New York and New Jersey. It's almost impossible to get a carrier's permit because of the liberal democratic laws. I feel it's really not right because it's our constitutional right. Assuming that we have a good background. If we pass a background check, there should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to get a gun. But in New York, it's almost impossible. And New Jersey is also very tough, I heard. And more people will be carrying guns, and they are carrying guns. And they're also hiring security guards for synagogues and this and that. But, who wants to live like that? That's not the way we want to live, But like I said, this is a game changer.
Why is it so difficult in New York to get guns? I mean, the bad guys have guns, don't they?
Well, the person who walked into the synagogue in Texas, not a synagogue, I'm sorry, the church in Texas, he had a gun. The bad guys always have guns. They always will get guns. That's the problem. And these liberals don't get it. Just like the liberals say, there's only like 10, 11 illegal aliens in the country. It's not 10, 11. That was like 10 years ago. It's more like 30 million now, at least. So they seem to say, no, guns are no good. Well, you know what? The bad people always manage to get guns. That's why they're bad people. It's the good people who are suffering. So basically, it's the liberals who run New York. New York's mayor, de Blasio, was voted by the New York Post as the worst mayor ever. Okay, Mario Cuomo is pro late abortion. He's pro what's it called, assisted suicide. He's pro. You name it, he's pro it. And it's very liberal, and they don't want us having guns. It's just and how are we going to fight them? I mean, it would cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, to fight them in court, to try to go ahead and and sue them and do that. If I had the money, I would.
Problem is, these mayors and these governors, they keep winning. Didn't de Blasio just win an election in New York recently?
De Blasio would not win high school president anymore. He's done. I mean, everyone sees through him now. When he tried to go for president, he polled in like 0.5%. He didn't hit 1%. People see right through him that he's a joke. He's a clown. He's a clown. That's what he is.
Let me ask you some questions about anti-Semitism. In the past 15 years or so, we've seen a huge increase of anti-Semitic attacks on Jews in Europe by mostly Muslim immigrants. But now this cancer is almost restarted here. And religious Jews are routinely being attacked by mostly young folks in New York City and other major cities. What do you think the reason is for all of this? What is this hostility from black people towards Jews? Where is that coming from?
It's a good question. I don't think I have all the answers, but a couple of things come to mind. I think number one is frustration, because black children in the public schools in New York, and a lot of it has to do to the fault of the mayor. And the mayor, he hired the school chancellor. This is like a second or third one. They're doing a terrible job with the public schools. They're not graduating. Not even 50% of the kids are graduating. So, and they're frustrated. It could be also social media, probably a lot of social media. Also, there's a lot of just people just make up stuff all the time, Jews do this, Jews run the world, Jews run the banks, Jews run Hollywood, Jews run this, I got news for you. Most Jews are not rich. Okay, yes, there are rich Jews, just like there's rich Italians and there's rich Greeks and there's rich, you name it. I mean, there's rich Mexicans, but most Jews are not rich. As a matter of fact, in Brooklyn, there's a lot of Jews in poverty, a lot. And also in New Jersey, there's a lot of Jews, Orthodox Jews, and live in Lakewood, New Jersey, it's called. Most, I would say, 75% are, live maybe at the poverty line, maybe a drop above the poverty line. That's it. But another thing you brought up about Europe, I mean, Europe destroyed Europe. Okay. And the one who I blame the most is Merkel from Germany, Chancellor Merkel, because she went ahead and for some reason she felt that it's Germany's duty to take in all these immigrants, Muslim immigrants, I may add, men who had no other intention but to come into these countries and make trouble and take advantage of the situation. And she pressured all the other countries in Europe to go ahead and take in immigrants. For France and Italy and Spain and all these countries. I would say in 10 to 20 years, Europe is going to be part of the Middle East. Yeah, it's sad, but I think it's true. I think within 20 years, I think Europe will be part of the Middle East. It's bad news. This is going on for a while. I don't know if people know there's parts of France that the police will not go into. It's Muslim ruled. They will not go into that part. And it's been like that for years. And it's just getting worse. Orthodox Jews, they wear something called a yarmulke on their head, a skull cap. And if I went to Europe today, I would not wear it in France or in Germany in public. That's how bad it is in there.
They replaced the Nazis with Muslims. It's kind of very interesting. But let's get back to America for a little while. We were discussing black anger towards Jewish people, and it seems unreasonable, but it is happening. And you didn't cover up people like Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan. We know that they're anti-Semites, but there's new House members. They're all Democrats. Rashida Tlaib, Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. Why aren't the Democrats doing anything about them?
Because the Democrats, first of all, the Democrats are and always were full of crap. Okay? Now, the Democrats of 20, 30 years ago are like Republicans today. The Democrats today are more, I would call them more like socialists. Okay? Now, in Congress, you have something called the Black Caucus. I would challenge anyone who's listening to this program to tell me what the Black Caucus has done in the past 20 years for the African American people in the United States of America. Okay? And the answer is nothing. Zero. You know what they did? They did just a bunch of promises before election time. I know you hear this all the time, but it's true. They come out, oh, you gotta vote for the black people. You want to get those programs. You want this and that. We're here for you, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as the election's over, you don't see those people. Okay, they're gone. I mean, they sit in Congress. They don't do nothing. And a lot of these people spew a lot of hate. And they're all anti-Trump. They're so busy with Trump, with the stupid impeachment for the stupid thing. If he didn't do, who cares? Wall Street, the economy is the highest it ever was. Okay, jobs the highest it ever was for African Americans, for Spanish people. If this country wants to go back into a recession, just keep doing what the Democrats are doing, and this country, because if God forbid Trump does not win in 2020, besides the quality of life, this country will go into a major recession because the stock market will bust. Housing, that market will be flooded. This country will be in such a recession that if they think crime is bad now, they have no idea what's going to happen because it's going to be really, really bad.
The AJ Steele Show will be right back.
You're listening to the AJ Steele Show, where no topic is off limits, no discussion too harsh, no truth more true. The AJ Steele Show, we tell it like it is.
Really want to be is a guy that gets the girl. All I really want to be.
So Israel, I recently did an interview with a Jewish man named Ram Luberniki, and he has a group called American Bikers for National Security. It's a group of tough motorcycle riders who fight to expose radical Islam and to protect Jews and fellow Americans from Islamic violence. I don't know, maybe the Orthodox Jews and other religious people in America are too passive and peaceful. Do we need to fight back? Do you guys need to fight back?
Well, there used to be an organization called the JDL back in the 70s and the 80s. It was ran by Rabbi Meir Kahana. He was actually a member of the Knesset in Israel until they banned him from the Knesset. And also the United States made the JDL a terrorist organization, which is interesting that they made the JDL a terrorist organization, but CARE, which is a Muslim organization in the United States and is able to run as an organization, where in Europe it's banned as a terrorist organization. But getting back to with Jews, so JDL was called the Jewish Defense League, and they would go around, they had guns and stuff like that. But the problem is that there are Jews that do that. We do have in Brooklyn, patrols and stuff like that. It's called shomrim, which is a Hebrew word for watchers. They stay up late, they patrol the cars. But let's be realistic. If we have to protect ourselves, of course we'll protect ourselves. But we're not. You don't have to worry about going to a Jewish neighborhood and getting mugged, or about your car getting stolen in a Jewish neighborhood. Okay, these things don't happen. Okay, Jews, by nature are not physical people as far as making damage and things like that. Of course, yes, there's always an exception to the rule. Okay, yes, I will admit that there are Jews, unfortunately, that do a lot of white-collar crime. Bernie Madoff would be one of them, which is an embarrassment. But Jews are not going to murder people. Jews are not going to rob people. So it's not in our nature to go do that. Like I said, there are people who will defend themselves. But in general, a lot of the Jews it's not in their DNA to do that.
Well, I think most Israelis might differ with you on that one, but let's move on. What are your thoughts about liberal Jews in America and the fact that they're so blind? I mean, they have a blind hatred of President Trump. They hate conservatives. And even more shocking, they're almost indifferent. And in some ways, they hate the Jewish homeland of Israel.
It's interesting you brought that up. So Bernie Sanders, he tries to go ahead and say, well, just because you're anti-Zionist doesn't mean that you're an anti-Semite. So, it's basically the liberals are trying to, say that Israel is not connected to the Jews. Jews are not connected to Israel. Well, that's really a hard thing to say because Israel is the Jewish homeland. I mean, it was created right after the worst tragedy in Jewish history, the Holocaust, which is for a different show maybe, okay? But the homeland of Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. Of course, we live in America. We love America, and we will do anything we can for America, and we pay our taxes and so forth. But to go ahead and these liberals, they have some type of guilt inside of them for some reason. I don't know what it is. And we call them self-hating Jews. And in my opinion, there's nothing worse than a self-hating Jew. And they will get punished, from God, in my opinion, for what they are doing. They are an embarrassment to Jews. They know better. A lot of them were born in New York. Bernie Sanders and Schumer, and Nadler. And I'm embarrassed of these people. These people, I would spit in their face if they came in front of me. It's disgusting what they're doing, in my opinion. Most Jews are against them. And people ask me, so why are so many Jewish Democrats? And I tell you, you know what? That's not the case anymore. People are finally seeing the light. People are realizing that the Democrats is not the party you want to be in today anymore. And because of people like you mentioned, Cortez, and Talib, and Ilhan Omar. So, yeah, I think more like 5-10 years ago, a lot of Jews were Democrats. But I think in the next election, there will be a lot of Jews voting for Trump. A lot more than last time.
I hope so. Now, I read your Twitter account. You have a very, very popular Twitter account. It's at Breslov1282, BRESLOV 1282, correct?
Yes.
And one of my favorite tweets of yours on Twitter says, I am choked up in tears as I see the greatest president of all times that gets knocked down every day by the left. He stopped by a church in Virginia just to give moral support, took off his hat, and just stood there. No talking, no politics. Then he left. Make America great again. Israel, what are your thoughts on evangelical Christians who support and love Israel sometimes a lot more than liberal Jews do?
Yes, you are correct. The evangelical Christians are the best friends that the Jewish people have and Israel has. Hundreds of thousands, if not maybe even close to 1 million, come to Israel every year. A lot of them come obviously for the history, because Jesus born there, and he was walking, he walked all around Israel and stuff like that. And a lot of them come to give support for financial, just to spend money there and stuff like that. And we're very grateful to them, and we're very grateful that they have President Trump's back too, because that's going to be a huge thing for President Trump in 2020. So yes, the evangelical Christians are great friends to the Jewish people, and I'm very happy for that.
I think it's pretty amazing, especially given the history of Judaism and Christianity, and I'm talking about thousands of years ago and even up to hundreds of years ago. But in some ways, they've repented, and maybe we're repenting a bit too. It's a beautiful thing in a way.
Yes, I think Christianity came a long way as far as their openness towards Jews. I think America is definitely part of it. I think America, like I said, is it's a great gift that was given for people, for Jews, for everybody. One thing I mentioned, I tweeted about it. I think it was yesterday, the day before, that when my grandparents came over from Europe, and pretty much everyone's grandparents, when they came from Europe, I'm talking about probably right before the war or right after the Second World War, everybody had to come through Ellis Island. That was the rule. You came through Ellis Island. You came through Ellis Island, then you got a physical. Okay? If you were not healthy, you were sick, you were quarantined in Ellis Island. They didn't let you in. Then, in order to be let in, you had to have someone who sponsored you. They didn't want to just take people in and then be responsible for them. You had to have a sponsor. No one got any food stamps. Nobody got HUD. No one got heat. No one got these types of things. And that's the way people came into America. And the people came in and they worked their asses off. Who do you think did all the buildings and the bridges and so forth? Those were the immigrants that came from Europe. Okay, they worked honest day's work, got paid not a lot. They worked hard just to put their kids through school and so forth. And today, the liberal Democrats, they just want open borders. Why have a border even? Just open it. Everyone can come in. It's a free country and so forth. If you have no border, then you have no country. That's it. It's simple as that. It's just a matter of time. The liberals don't know what they're doing. They are stupid. They have no clue. They just think you just sit there, just print money, and just give out each one of the candidates, and this one's giving out free this one's giving out free that. One guy wants to pay each family a certain amount of money every year. Obama was giving out cell phones. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're so out of touch. And then when you try to debate them on it, you can't even get anywhere because they don't even answer the questions.
True. I personally came here as an immigrant when I was very young. I was about 13, and I came here very, very poor. And Americans have always treated me so well. It's one of the themes of the AJ Steele show, and it's why I love this country so much. I really do appreciate all the opportunities this country gave to me. And it seems like both you and I love this country very much.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. In America, it was great to the Jews. It is good to the Jews. And we have to have appreciation, and we have to give back 100%.
The AJ Steele Show will be right back with our interview of Yisroel, an Orthodox Jewish man from Brooklyn, New York.
I don't wanna be the kid that falls in the dark. All I really want to be is a guy that gets the girl.
AJ Steele. Not right, not left, just right.
Don't float like Ollie, don't sing like Howard, and don't
Now,
cry like a
you have real sharp words, and I know you're an Orthodox Jew. You have super angry sometimes, super sharp words to the enemies of America and to the enemies of President Trump, who you seem to absolutely love. How does that align with your religion?
Listen, I'm a religious Jew, but everyone is on their level. I try to be as good as a Jew as I am. But when it comes to people who are trying to put out fake news, fake lies about Israel, will try to put out tweets to hurt people, that's where I draw the line. And unfortunately, I do get angry. And sometimes sharp words is the only thing that works, and it might not sometimes be the best thing for me to do. But I feel I got to do what I have to do. That's why I do it.
Continuing on this discussion, some people say that President Trump's demeanor is just the opposite of religious virtue and teachings, and yet so many Orthodox Jews like you and many pious Christians support him. Are religiously devout people being hypocritical when they stand up for President Trump?
So two things. Number one is that President Trump, I believe, and a lot of Jews believe, he is God sent from God to be the president of the United States. He has been the best president for Israel in history. He doesn't stop doing for Israel. It's just amazing. With the embassy and he annexed the Golan Heights to Israel, which I don't understand, by the way. I mean, 4 countries went to war against Israel, and Israel beat them in war. I mean, isn't that the way war works? Whoever wins gets to keep the property. But I guess the Arabs don't want to accept that. But anyway, getting back to President Trump, and now he wants to annex the West Bank, and plus the military. I mean, people don't realize there's a lot of joint ventures going on military-wise with President Trump, with America and Israel, and so there's a lot of good things going on with Trump and Israel. Now, as far as the other thing with President Trump, President Trump is the first president who was not a politician. President Trump was a billionaire who, let's be honest, he liked to have a good time sometimes. After 9/11 in New York, this is all documented. There's videos on this. He offered to have his workers that went down to the Twin Tower site to help out. He was interviewed years ago, I believe it was by Oprah, and asked if he would ever run for president. And he says, I don't want to run for president. And I'm talking about, we're going back at least about 20 years. He says, but if the country ever came to the point where there was no one good enough to run and they needed me, he said, I would run. And this is something he said on TV 15 to 20 years ago. So people who say, oh, this and that, he's a man of his word. That's exactly what he said. He says, I don't want to run, but if it comes to time that we need him, and you know what? We did need him. Because Trump was the only one who's smart enough to beat Hillary. Okay, everyone thought, oh, Trump, yeah, no way he's going to win, this and that. But, but at debates, he used to walk around and he used to go, liar, liar, and all these type of crazy things, And he was able to get the votes, and he knew how to win, and he won. And he's a good person. Now, is he presidential, like a politician, all that? No, but you know what? Who cares? I'd rather have a person who does things. Trump has accomplished more in this presidency, and he has two hands tied behind his back. The liberals have tied two hands behind his back. This man has already appointed almost 170 federal judges. That means that all these judges in the circuit courts all across the United States will be there for life. That's more than anyone accomplished. And besides the stock market and the economy and the factories he's brought here, and look what's going on with China. He's the first president to ever stand up to China for the economy. And you know what? He's winning. They're supposed to sign the treaty, I think, in the end of January. And then he just redid NAFTA. So he's winning all over, but the liberals won't admit it. Of course they won't admit it. They rather have their people suffer. They rather have their people in the streets like they are in San Francisco and all the major New York and all the major cities, San Diego, LA, Oregon, Seattle is all full of homeless people. They rather have people in the streets than have Trump be right. That's their motto.
I live in San Francisco, and I can attest to what you're saying. There are homeless everywhere. Every major city in California has thousands and thousands of homeless. And these are not just the old hobos that you remember from the 1950s. These are major drug users, meth heads, right, mentally ill people, and the Democrats do nothing about it. And going back to Trump, though, despite everything that you said, I think in Yiddish there's a saying called mensch. I think you would call him a mensch, wouldn't you?
Yes, he's a mensch. Basically, what it means is it's a fair person. He does the right thing.
And I think that's what President Trump is. But irregardless of that, all we hear all day from the media, how he's a tyrant, he's a racist, he's a traitor, he's an anti-Semite. Have you seen any anti-Semitism coming from the president?
I just explained for 5 minutes how he was the best president for the Jewish people, for Israel, ever. And so, no. As a matter of fact, if anyone knows anything about Donald Trump, his whole inner circle in his business world was surrounded by Jewish people. What do you mean? His daughter's Jewish. Ivanka converted. She's an Orthodox Jew. She lives in Washington, D.C. She goes to synagogue on the Sabbath. She walks there with her husband, Jared Kushner. And so I would find it hard to believe that Donald Trump is. I would sooner believe that Elvis is alive than that Donald Trump is anti-Semite.
Elvis. I think Elvis is alive, okay?
That's the big debate that goes around still, yeah.
No, but I agree with you 100%. He's not anti-Semitic. He's not a tyrant. He's definitely not a traitor. He's been doing nothing but good for America. But then you have people like de Blasio in New York and all the Jewish Democratic politicians, Schumer, Nadler, Schiff, Bernie Sanders. I mean, the list is way too long to count, and all they do is blame Trump. And now they're even attacking Rudy Giuliani for every racist act in America, even acts that are done by the radical left. What do you think about that?
Because they can't take the fact that Trump is in office for not even 3 years yet, okay? And he accomplished more than Obama accomplished in 8 years. They can't accept that he won. So all these things put together, that the anger, anger is so powerful. When a person's angry, it's one of the worst traits. The Bible talks about it, how anger is one of the worst traits a person can have. It blinds you. So basically, they are blinded, and not because by accident. Deep down inside, they know the country's doing better today than it was 4 or 5 years ago, but they'll never admit it. They'll sooner drop dead before they admit that Donald Trump won fairly and that he's doing a good job. That's their mission. Their mission is just to put him down like a sick dog, And it's very sick, unfortunately, and it's on the expense of the American people. Look how much time is being wasted in those stupid committee rooms. I can't take those committee rooms that are run by the representatives of the House, and unfortunately, the Democrats run the House now, so they're running all the committees. I mean, look what they did to Judge Kavanaugh. Does anyone think now that for a second that those ladies who came out and said, in the House, and he was there, he did this, and no one can remember anything. It was such a crock of, can I say shit on the radio?
You want me to put it out? We will.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a crock of shit what they put out. Look what happened with the Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, everybody knows that all these women were lying, okay? And it was like amazing. It was like one after the other said, oh, I remember too. Oh, I remember too. Oh, where was it? Oh, I don't remember. Oh, where was it? I don't remember. Was it upstairs, downstairs? I don't remember. It was so long ago, and meanwhile, thank God that the hearings was in the Senate, and the Senate was run by the Republicans, because I could tell you for sure if it was run by the House, there was no way he would have gotten in. But he deserved it, and I think Trump picked a good person, and thank God he got in, and he's on the bench.
Going back to something you said earlier, it kind of struck me because I do a lot of interviews with different people, Christians, Jews, people who are non-believers necessarily. And many of them have told me that they believe that President Trump was given to us by God. Just recently, I had an interview with Juanita Broderick. She's the woman who got raped by Bill Clinton.
Yes, I remember.
And she told me, AJ, I believe that President Trump was given to us by God. And I find that very interesting.
I believe that. I believe, as an Orthodox Jew, that everything that happens to us is from God. I don't believe in anything, in coincidences. That's my belief. So for me to believe that is not very difficult. I definitely believe it, and I see it because it's wide open. You know what? You see what you want to see, and that's the bottom line. And the Democrats don't want to see. They want to just keep their eyes closed, and they want to beat them to a pulp, and they want one of their people in. And God forbid if that happens, I don't have to tell you, AJ, what's going to happen to this country.
The AJ Steele Show will be right back with the final part of our interview with Yisroel.
All I really want to be is the guy that gets the girl.
The AJ Steele Show. Think of your loudmouth best friend, hated by all the wives, because he tells it just like it is.
Finally see your love belongs to me.
I agree with you, and I think it's a lot more sinister than what you're even saying. I think when President Trump talks about this swamp, there truly is a swamp. It's a globalist swamp, and I think the Democrats, they just want to be in power. It's just one big game, and he's exposed that, hasn't he?
Let me tell you something a little further, okay? And I also tweeted about this many times. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, I'll go further with that. Both attorney generals under Obama, and we had Jussie Smollett. You remember him in Chicago, the one that was wearing the MAGA hat, and he said that two people came and they beat him up and all that, and it was proven that he lied.
Mm-hmm.
They let him free. All these people ask, why isn't they in jail? There is a swamp. I do believe there is a deeper thing in Washington going on. Okay, Hillary Clinton will never go to jail. James Comey will never go to jail. The attorney generals will never go to jail. I do believe that there is a cabal in Washington. Otherwise, can you explain to me why these people are not in jail? I mean, is there any question that Hillary Clinton didn't commit crimes? She committed. If they want to impeach President Trump, Hillary Clinton deserves a death penalty. She had the servers, her own emails, Okay, then how about she had pay for play in the White House, pay for play. Okay, you wanted something, it's documented time and time again. You gave money to the Clinton Foundation, which was a bullshit foundation. Okay, you got this. Then she sold our uranium to Russia. I tweet about this also. Can you explain to me who sells uranium to your enemy? Uranium is what people don't know. We use it in nuclear weapons, and it's not easy to get, and it's hard to get, and it's very expensive. She sold, with the permission of President Obama, okay, 20%, I believe was the number, of our uranium to Russia, and she doesn't go to jail, and nothing happens to nobody, and they want to impeach Trump. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's so out of whack. If you put it in a movie, people wouldn't believe it.
I agree with you, but I'm still a believer in my own way. I still think that there's justice in this world, and they will pay one way or another. And I don't want to get all my listeners too upset and too heartbroken over what you're saying. I do believe that there will be justice served.
Oh, there is. Yes, I do. Yes, but I also believe that they will not for this, but justice. Yes, I do believe that everyone, one day, you get what's coming to you. Yes.
I hope you're right. Now, let's move on a little bit. We're coming to the end of our show, and I have a couple more questions for you.
Yes.
Many Orthodox Jews can be quite insular, and they seem to be opposed to modern things. What are your feelings about the modern state of Israel and the fact that most Jews in Israel are not extremely religious, and some of them even are secular?
So I've been to Israel many times. Actually studied there for a year. My belief is that there are neighborhoods in Israel that very, very ultra-Orthodox and been around for hundreds of years. I would say about from the early 1800s. So neighborhoods like that, I feel should be left the way it is. In other words, if that's the way that people want to live and so forth, then I don't think it's right for people to come in and, they don't drive cars on the Sabbath or buses and so forth. I don't think that should be allowed because they've been there for a long time and so forth. But if there's a new neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are not, so Orthodox and people want to go drive their cars or go to the movies and so forth, that's up to them. That's every person has their beliefs, how they want to live their lives and so forth. But like I said, if it's a neighborhood that's been around for a long time, it's called status quo, so to speak. Let it be the way it is. That's my feelings on that.
Do you have any final words or a message for the audience of the AJ Steele Show and for America in general?
Yes, I believe, AJ, that things look a little tough right now, and they are a little tough. Let's be honest. The liberals are treating our president like a piece of garbage. They're treating us like garbage, and America is in turmoil as far as people are fighting with each other and so forth, and things look bleak, especially the Jewish people. We always lived, we always had it hard. I mean, you go back in the Bible from, day one, we had it hard. Yeah, first of all, you have to hold on to your faith and hold on tight, and you can't give up, and you have to realize that there's always going to be bumps in the road, but the main thing is that you don't let it deter you to get off track. Yeah, things are tough, and it's, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. That's the way it is. I mean, we have to be strong. We have to fight. We can't let the liberals win. We have to fight back. That's why you ask me why am I told in my language sometimes on the tweets. Sometimes you can't be nice. It just doesn't work that way. The liberals aren't nice. You see what they tweet. They tweet lies and hate. This is a very serious thing. It goes to show you that for them it's a game. It's all a game. And we have to realize that at the end of the day, truth and honesty will always win at the end of the day. People are seeing through all the liberals. People are seeing through their lies. People are seeing what they're doing to this country. People are seeing what's going on at the border. People are seeing what's going on in their communities. And people are seeing when you go to an emergency room, you have to wait 5 hours because you have illegal immigrants there because they have a cold. If, God forbid, Trump loses and one of those bozos come president and they give health care to everyone for free, you could kiss medicine goodbye in America. I do believe, I have faith, at the end of the day, President Trump always comes out and he always manages to win. Like we mentioned before, we spoke about this, that he's God sent, and I do believe he's due for another term. look at every fight that he was in, Trump always came out of it. Every scandal, whether it was real or wasn't real, doesn't make a difference. President Trump, with two hands tied behind his back, always manages to come out and win like Superman. I really do believe that President Trump will win the election. And I do believe that the conservatism is not dead in America. And I believe that we can win this. And we have to vote out. We have to make sure we vote out these creeps in Congress. And at the end of the day, in 2020, I think America will be a much better place as far as political-wise than it is today. That is my vision for what I see in America for the people of the AJ Steele Show.
Nice to have such a good vision, and I agree with you. America will always come up on top in the end. Yisroel, thank you very much. I wish you much health and happiness and a Happy New Year, and all the best to you from the AJ Steele Show and all of our listeners.
Thank you again, AJ, and I appreciate you having me on the show. And people can see me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Breslov, BRESLOV 1282.
All I really want to be is a guy that gets the girl. All I really want to be. All I really want to be is a guy that gets the girl.
The AJ Steele Show, copyrighted 2020.